Next In.
Welcome to Next In. It is February. We haven't done one of these in a little while here. So we got Shane, of course, myself, joined by John, also with Next Level. So John's kind of like our resident gaming guy. And so that's why we brought John on, because we have a really special guest, Mike Fridley, and we'll get to him in just a second. So real fast, just wanted to say thanks for joining. You guys can subscribe. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this one. This will be our one of our first kind of forays into the gaming space, which is a area that we spend a lot of time in over at Next Level, and we have a pretty strong knowledge, and especially John, like I said, kind of our gaming guy. So let's get into our interview here with Mike. So Mike's the COO of Squanch Games. So essentially, Mike is the brains of the entire operation. Squanch Games basically runs just because of Mike, right, Mike?
I would like to take that accolade, but it's not exactly true. It's Justin Roiland's our founder and CEO, and it's Justin's studio. I like to joke that I do all the stuff that Justin doesn't like to do. So operations and keeping all the trains running on time is largely in my purview, but we're a very creative first studio, and that's mostly because of Justin.
Okay, so Mike does everything. We heard it here first. And by the way, I agree. The COO does literally everything. He's basically A to Z. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Is there a bias here? Are we hearing a bias?
Yeah, it's like a COO conversation we're having here, and it's two amazing-looking guys, so that makes sense.
Yes.
Right. So, Mike, I'm going to start off. I'm going to ask a couple of questions that have literally nothing to do with Squanch Games, but more just about you. I let Shane and John kind of get technical, but so give us a fun fact, Mike. Tell us a little bit about yourself, something that's fun and exciting outside of just what you do at Squanch Games.
Oh, geez, fun and exciting. I grow my own weed.
Nope, that's fun and exciting.
So, that's fun. Like hydroponic grower. When I'm moving from California to back home to Virginia, and they allow you to grow there too. So I'm super excited about that. But it's exciting is such a relative term. I'm not sure. It's like, big into pen and paper gaming and stuff. And like, but is that exciting to people? I don't know. Like I could regale you with stories of playing Call of Cthulhu till 3 o'clock in the morning with
nice
people that I've known for 20 years. But is that exciting? I don't know.
I like growing your own weed. It's very relaxing. It's very therapeutic, we'll say.
Yeah.
You do have the most beautiful background view of any person we've had on, unless it's a green
screen. It's green screen.
Oh, well, you have a good green screen.
Very good green screen. Watch. Boop.
Oh my gosh! I was like, wow, this guy that is a beautiful, picturesque.
It's all part of the mirage. It's all part of the illusion.
John also has an awesome green screen down below, and that's on purpose.
Yeah.
It's on purpose.
Yeah, no, this is what happens when you're in between moving and the new house, and if you looked over here, we have like boxes like.
See, man, get you a cheap green screen and OBS, and
there you go.
I could be broadcasting out of a dumpster right now. You guys don't know, so
that's true.
All right, so Mike coming to us from the dumpster.
Yes.
All right, so Mike, next question. And so right now, obviously, the pandemic has shut down a lot of travel. You just said, hey, you're going back to Virginia, which is cool. So there's some travel involved in that. Hopefully, we're pretty much done with this thing, and we can actually start opening back up and moving around and going to places we want to go to. Where would you want to go? Let's say like right now, cool. Squanch says, hey, Mike, you need to take a week. Go somewhere that you haven't been able to go for the last 2 years. Where are you going?
I'm probably going back to visit Colorado. I lived in Colorado for a while when I was working at Hasbro, and I really missed the Boulder area. And I have friends that I have a couple of friends that I've worked with for 20 plus years that are still in Boulder. And it's just a really nice, cool, chill place to go relax. And I'm not a huge like world traveler. I don't like to go outside the country if I can avoid it, because I'm an American, and it's
Can I raise my hand? I want to chime in for a second, because I've only been to Denver once, right? And I really want to go back. I accidentally made, the mistake of going where all the tourists go. So one is I'd love your opinion on the Stanley Hotel. And then two, I would love to know where should I go where I don't have to buy a ticket to go on a hike. Like it's like the lottery. It felt like I was buying a PS5 when I was trying to figure out how to go on a hike. It was like, open up at 5, get it. And we couldn't do any hikes. It was kind of outrageous. And I would love to know where I should go to actually go on a hike in Colorado where I don't have to feel like I'm buying a PS5.
Yeah. I mean, get the hell away from Denver. So I would go up to Boulder. It's not very far away. There's a lot of hiking opportunities in the Flatirons there around Boulder. It's just a lot. There's Boulder University there, but there's not a lot of the commercial stuff that you see in Denver. And Denver's not like a super populated major city either. But if you want to get away from some of the commercialization and the high prices of stuff to do, I would just try to get away from Denver completely and head out to the Boulder area and outlying areas, like up north of Boulder. There's some nice places too. Little do people know, the biggest functioning outdoor wildlife preserve is like an hour and a half away from Boulder. They have a big elevated walkways that you can walk around, and there's all kinds of tigers and wolves and bears, and it's crazy. It's like the National Wildlife Preserve, or I forget
Oh, wow.
what it is. But people don't know about it, but it's really awesome. I've been there. It's fun to do in the warmer months. They don't like to come out if it's too hot, but if you get there right at the perfect time, you can see all kinds of crazy stuff out in their semi-native habitat.
You ever go down to Colorado Springs? Check out
No.
Pikes Peak and all that stuff, because that's absolutely gorgeous and is far less tourist, or trailed than.
Yeah, my wife watches too much of Lieutenant Kenda. And it seems like everything happens there. All the murders happen in Colorado Springs, so I'm like, I don't want to go there.
That's why, Discovery Channel. I would never go to Australia because I assume, right when you get off the plane, you're either stung by a scorpion or eaten by a snake.
Yeah, everything's trying to kill you. Everything.
Yes.
Not another Australian topic. Yeah, one before.
All right, so last question from me, and this is the most important one that you'll be judged heavily on by myself and the 64 million people who watch this. Favorite movie? What's your favorite movie?
Oh God, I think that's an impossible question to answer. I know why you're asking it, but I think it's an impossible question to answer. Of all time, probably Raiders. Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's for more nostalgia than it. There was a certain time I saw it. I was on a family vacation to Cape Cod, and it came out, and we went as a family to go see it in the theater. And it was like that. That was like nobody had really done anything like that. Had done anything like Raiders of the Lost Ark yet, and it was like such a cool experience to see it. It was like a small theater that had a good sounds. It was just. I was like 10 years old or something. It permanently impressed it on my brain that this was the coolest thing ever. So Raiders, I think it's probably my pick.
I would say, and you know what? And I will give you credit. I would say the greatest trilogy of all time, in my not so humble opinion, is definitely Indiana Jones. And I know many people would say a Star Wars or something.
I like the second. I like Temple of Doom. A lot of people don't like Temple of Doom, but I like Temple of Doom in Last Crusade. We could pretend like the series ended there.
It did. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
There was a trilogy. There was 3 of them. The fourth one, I don't think it's a fourth one. That was just some weird spin-off that Shia LaBeouf, privately funded or something. That thing was a disaster.
Transformers.
That was a complete disaster. So, all right, mine's Braveheart. So, and I can appreciate though. Yeah, Raiders is awesome. So, and you know what?
I think Pulp Fiction, Braveheart, those are all kind of the kind of offbeat ones that weren't formulaic are always the ones that kind of resonate with me the most. It's like nobody really. I'd seen Reservoir Dogs before Pulp Fiction, but Pulp Fiction was like a whole new. It just confused the shit out of everybody. They're like, I don't know what's going on. It's the stuff's all out of order. I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. Don't you understand? This is something new. Don't you like something new? And, it's all the kind of stuff that they haven't done before, the big battle scenes in Braveheart and all the authenticity to the big battle scenes and just the kind of politics that were going on at the time is accidentally historically accurate in some places. And it was, all good stuff. So yeah,
I will say you get extra credit though from all the people we've had on that I asked this. You're the first person who has said that part of the purpose of your favorite had a lot more to do with just the movie itself, and some of it is just the nostalgia and the time and the moment. It's like what's your favorite meal in a lot of ways should be about. Maybe it was where it was and you're overlooking the ocean and you're with your wife and it's a great night or whatever it is. I think there's a lot that goes to Raiders, and it just happened to be your age, your timing, your family, vacation. I love that. So I'll let Shane and John get into more about Squanch, but between the fact that you like Raiders and you grow your own pot, I also think you might be the creative genius behind Squanch.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Gladiators, and it was a pretty similar reason, just because it was something that I used to watch with my dad all the time. And, we'd always have like these wrestling matches in the middle of the living room, and somebody would end up yelling, like, "Are you not entertained?" like super loud, like constant. Like it was something that we always got jazzed up about. But no, that's awesome. So yeah, like Taylor said, I'd love to transition a little bit into, before we get into like Squanch and all that fun stuff, there's a lot of noise going on in the gaming industry right now, where we've got like these big studios that are starting to buy everybody out, right? Like, I think I was doing some research, and it's something crazy. Like in 2022, there's already been, or recently, I guess, within the last 6 months, there's like $86 billion worth of acquisitions that have happened in the last 12 months. And the prior year, I think it was like maybe 10% of that. And before that, way less billions than the last 2 years, right? And so there does seem to be like this massive push into these giant companies starting to gobble up all of the studios that are out there. And I'd love to kind of just dive in and get a little bit of your opinion on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think there's multiple ways to think about it. Like, is it good for the industry? Is it going to continue? What does it do for smaller studios? And I'm happy to talk about that stuff. But I think it's going to continue. Like, I think we've just seen the tip of it. I think this is the beginning. Consolidation always breeds consolidation. So we're going to see, I think, more consolidation. I think that there'll be both large and small consolidations, and there'll be, at times, the perception will be that they're good for the industry. Like, there's definitely some upsides to, I think, what Microsoft and Sony are both trying to do right now with these game services they're offering, the subscription services. I think Game Pass is a huge value right now. I have Game Pass Ultimate. It's amazing. I play games that I never would have played without it. Like, it has a massive library. It's only getting bigger with each one of these acquisitions. It's like, oh yeah, okay. I never would have bought this game, but I'm sure glad it was on here because I got to play it. And Sony is now consolidating all their, I guess it was Sony Now and Sony Plus or whatever their two services were, into basically a Game Pass type of service. So I think that is likely where the industry is going. And because of that, those big powerhouses need content. And so you can either buy it or make it. And I think that the consolidation of it is going to increase the amount of content that Microsoft and Sony can make. And provide that value to their subscribers. But is it going to be the kind of content that we see now with independently owned studios? Like, or is Activision going to stay Activision? Is Bethesda going to stay Bethesda? I don't know. I know that I worked at some pretty big studios. I worked at Bethesda. I worked at EA. I've worked in some big on some big titles and big franchises. And having more cooks has never been a good thing. Having more cooks in the creative, having different goals. So you have business goals, you have creative goals, you have PR goals. Like, there's all these different goals in a larger mechanism of a giant publisher that don't always align with making a great game. And the benefit of being a small indie studio, and I've been in a couple of small indie studios now too, is that we define our own pillars and what makes the most sense to us. And for a place like Squanch, our main pillar and it's really the only pillar is make games that we want to play.
Mhm.
And you notice part of that isn't make games that we want to play that make a shitload of money. Like that isn't part of the pillar. That, you know, we want to be profitable, obviously. We want to continue to do this as a career, and we want everybody to be able to advance and progress in our studio and you know, take care of their families or themselves or whatever. But that isn't one of our pillars. It isn't like, okay, leverage our data to increase our LTV for each player that we have in our ecosystem. Like, I think if I said that to Justin, he would probably scream at me if I said that sentence. So it's more about like, okay, this game like doesn't have a market, but we really want to play it, and we really think it's fun, and we think it's funny as shit, and we think it's going to be a lot of people are going to like it, and maybe it'll make money. Hopefully it'll make money. Maybe we'll get lucky and make a buttload of money. Who cares? And it's more about like that's sustainable. Is that a sustainable business model after consolidations? And what we're seeing now is that it looks like it may be. If you want to stay indie, you just have to make good stuff. Like there's licensing deals to be made with Sony and Microsoft instead of the traditional publisher environment that we used to have for, you know, up until just recent history, where you would go to Microsoft or Take-Two or somebody like Bethesda before they got acquired and try to get a publishing deal with them. Now it's more about, can I sell this game to some of the biggies and them just license it from me, which ends up being better for the indie because we're not doing a recoup of development costs. So if you have like a $20 million budget, you're not and you license the game for $20 million, you're not then recouping off of the sales to pay back the publisher. You're able to realize profits day one, which, you know, helps us maintain. Like the biggest thing in India is always like making payroll, making the bills. Is like, where's the next paycheck coming from? And, you know, that this model offers the opportunity for, if you're making good stuff that is interesting, it's no longer a question of like, okay, is it going to hit this Metacritic? Does it have these key features that people say needs to happen right now? Like the pitch process is a lot different with the big console owners than it was before, where it, you know, it used to be like, well, we're not, they would, you know, Microsoft or somebody be like, we're not talking to anybody unless it has co-op, or we're not talking to anybody unless it has microtransactions in it, or we're not talking to anybody unless it has gotcha boxes in it. Like we're not doing it, you know. It's like, well, that isn't our game, and we still think it's compelling. But it's like, well, we don't have a market for it. Now they're more likely to say like, well, is this going to drive interest to our service? Is it going to drive interest to opening up the app, and is it going to drive interest to purchasing our consoles? Like, how does it take advantage of our hardware? How does it take advantage of the updates to our hardware? Like, that's more what they're interested in, is getting more awareness to their service, because that's where they're making their money. They're not making it off of you know, traditional disc sales anymore. Right now, we're not even like really doing physical discs anymore.
Which is crazy, right? And
yeah.
I think, you know, when you think about it, even like Netflix entering the market, I think they recognize that you don't necessarily need a hard disk anymore. You
Yeah.
can do things that are just live streaming, and it's like they're getting ready to build a platform, and they think bringing people onto their service will make sense. I don't know what Netflix has or what it's going to do. I'm curious if you have any ideas, but like you probably can't say anything.
They're definitely trying to grab up people with game production experience. So the level and the quantity of people that we're trying to recruit right now makes me think they're pretty far off. But I have no insight into the inner workings of the games branch that's burgeoning over at Netflix. I have to think that just witnessing what they've done with their own unique original content on the video side, that there's potentially some potential for there's some potential for you know, a lot of cool stuff to come out and a lot of garbage to come out of a gaming unit in Netflix, because they seem to be less oversighty about how content gets made and what gets made. So I'm excited about it. Like I'm excited about like I'll take 2 turds in one hit every day. Like just give me the hit. Like I'll wade through the other stuff that's garbage to get to the hit.
Take one Ozark and a bunch of too hot to handles. I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Like would Ozark have got made anywhere else? I don't know. Maybe HBO would have done it, but like it's that kind of thing is like, yeah, great. It's another fucking crime drama set in Bulgaria that I have to read subtitles. Like, okay, or like Ozark. Yeah, it's like okay, yeah, all right, cool. Or like the Squid Game. Like Squid Game came out of nowhere. It was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, would that have got made anywhere else? Probably not. Like,
So the question is like, how long did it take for you to get through Squid Games? Because I think I was done in 2 days.
Oh, really? It's weird because my wife has a very, very strict rule about binging stuff. She doesn't like to binge it. So,
oh my gosh, your wife and my wife should talk. That's the same thing. She'd like one episode a night, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm the opposite.
Spread it out. I'm like, she's like kind of person you go to the theater and you buy the popcorn, and she's like, we got to save some for when the movie starts. I'm like, I'm just going to plow through this popcorn.
Yes.
Like, I got to spread it out. The experience has to be spread out in uniform. I'm like, this is insane to me. So. Like it took me a while to get through Squid Games because I could only watch one a day, so it was like a week and a half or something that it took me to get through it.
Yeah, I finished the Squid Games with a black eye. So like sometimes I come into the office and I have like a busted lip or a black eye because it hits 4 a.m. and Stephanie just starts throwing elbows at me and she's like, it's time for bed. And then I just got to tell the rest of the crowd, I was like, oh, it's like a rough day at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know what happened. Of course, it wasn't Stephanie's tiny little elbow that beat me last night. But cool, man. So like, I guess, let's dive into a little bit about Squanch, right? And I know that, part of what we do, right, is we're all around like recruiting, we're all around hiring. And I'm curious of like, what do you think has kind of changed maybe in the last year or two when it comes to like recruiting and their hiring, in the indie sector versus, competing with some of these massive AAA studios?
I think that the big difference between somebody like a big massive studio and a small indie is that I think indies weight cultural fit, and I hate using that term because it sounds like it's a BS term, but whether it's personality or creative vision or conflict resolution or like all that kind of rolls up into the culture of the studio. Like how do we handle people that disagree? How do you argue with people? How do you get your point across when you're the only person in the room that has it? Like all those are a lot more important to us at the indie level because we don't have a deep bench. Like we don't have a bunch of folks that are just there that may or may not be utilized at any time. Like I worked at EA Sports for a while, and it's like 5 or 6 floors worth of people making 2 games, and it was just insane. Like there's no way that we were like utilizing everybody to their full extent. But in indie, you need to, like every dollar counts, every person counts. Any weak link in the chain is bad, and so part of the recruiting process for us on the indie side is a lot to do with personality fit, and having the chops and whether that's training or experience in the field, that counts a lot too. But being able to do the job and pull it off, and we lean on tests a little bit more on the indie side than I saw on AAA or the big. I shouldn't say AAA. I should say big studios because we're making AAA too. Damn it. It's more the warm body philosophy at the big studios. A lot of times it's like, well, we have this person's going to be have 2 different redundancies in this tools programming group. So if they don't work out, then we'll just manage them out and replace them. It becomes kind of a revolving door at the bigger studios. Like your retention rates are really low in comparison to indies, or your turnover rates are really high. We're more interested in getting people that we see being with us for 10 years or more, that we see like not only what they can contribute right now, but how they're going to contribute to where we want to go, and how they're, like, and we spend so much time with these people too, even being a completely remote studio now, that we just don't want to work with a bunch of assholes either. So that's a big part of it is personality fit, and something, the intangibles that we call being squanchy
Being
at
squanchy, yeah.
Squanch that really help. Not easily offended. We say we have a lot of adult stuff going on at Squanch. That
Rick and Morty, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. I
Which
mean,
I was gonna ask that, man. I was like, I was going to dive into the question of like, when you guys interview people, is it like first question is like, what's your favorite Rick and Morty episode? And if they can't answer a question, it's like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Or I'm just going to totally judge you on your best episode, like your favorite episode. Like,
no, it's not a game show usually in the interview process, but we do, like, it is questions we ask, like, are you a fan of Justin's? Do you like his stuff? Like, what do you, we may jokingly put weight on something like, are you Solar Opposites or Rick and Morty? Which one are your favorites episodes? Like, we'll ask those questions, but it's more like, if they can't answer, it's like, okay, it's a throwaway question. If they can't answer, it's like that sometimes gives us a little bit of insight into the type of sense of humor they have.
Mhm.
If you can't, you have to have a sense of humor. Like, we're a comedy studio. We're always going to be rooted in comedy, rooted in narrative, rooted in really distinct, strong characters. Like, no matter what genre we're making, whether we're making a side scroller 8-bit game or we're making a AAA RPG, it's always going to be rooted in comedy, narrative, and character.
I got to ask you. You might not do it at your studio, but I kind of want to do it here, which is like, what's your favorite Rick and Morty episode?
Jesus, man.
I'm gonna let John answer his too next.
These are the hard hitting questions.
I kind of wanted to just start it at the beginning, rather. I mean, I know it's Raiders, but like,
I'm definitely like, I'm a season 1 and 2 guy. So like seasons 1 and 2, like they could all be, frozen in amber as signs of perfection of the animated series. So like I couldn't pick like probably anything in season 1 or 2 because they're all interchangeably as awesome to me. But I think recently I just, I fall asleep to Adult Swim every night, and recently the Beth clone episode played where the clone comes back from space, or is she the clone or is it the real Beth? And that whole episode, like, Justin, I could tell he had a bunch of, like, he ad-libs like crazy in the fucking booth. He does it for us on games and stuff. I could just tell, like, there was a bunch of stuff in there that just came out of Justin's head, and as he was recording it, and it's really smart, funny stuff. And like, I like the whole premise of like Rick not even knowing whether or not she was the clone, or he like fooled himself on purpose so he wouldn't know. It's just it's a funny twist, because the normal setup for a sci-fi show like that would be that he would know, and so it was a fun little twist at the end. Like, oh, I don't even know. I purposely fooled myself. So that's my favorite of the more new, the recent ones. But you're not going to pin me down on like my favorite of all time. Like, like, there's too much writing on that.
I know. I was asking John that earlier. I was like, bro, what's your favorite? And he's just like,
we watch them every other night. Yeah, it's like, he's talking about growing weed. It's like, that's the standard process at my house. We have a little something, and then we put on Rick and Morty or Solar Opposites. Like, I think one of the coolest things that Solar Opposites does so well that a lot of shows don't do is the side narrative of the wall. And how quickly that can grab you from somebody watching a show just in like a classic like comedy sitcom. So I think it's very, very unique of what you guys do, and something that Squanch does that, you mentioned it. You guys are a comedy studio. It's always going to be at the heart of what you guys do. But I feel like a lot of studios out there are scared to be funny in their games.
Absolutely.
Because they're afraid that they're not going to land the joke, right? So
it's hard. Like, when I started in the industry at Bethesda, and we actually had a rule not to be funny. It was, Elder Scrolls, Morrowind, and Oblivion. It was like, don't try to be funny because you're probably not funny. And It's true. Like most writers, like a fantasy writer, like they're not going to come up with really good jokes, even if they're a funny person. Like I thought I was fairly humorous until I started working at Squanch, and I started working with like professional comedy writers. And I'm like, oh, wait, these guys know how to actually structure a joke that's going to land almost 90% of the time. And like that is not true of like every joke I've ever said. I definitely don't have that high of a batting average. So like the idea that if you're funny, you can write comedy in games is because there's just, you play games differently no matter how you've designed it. Like the person bringing themselves to that game may or may not find something funny. But we try to endeavor to make it so you can't help but laugh at our jokes.
Y'all will force it. There'll be like a deadpan joke that's not funny, but then it'll keep going and keep going. Eventually, you're like, okay, I broke. You broke me. Like I give up. I have to laugh. This is so dumb. I have to laugh. Like some of the commercials are awesome. Like it's so bad. Like some of it's so bad it's hilarious. Yeah.
So my girlfriend and I have been. We recently got an Oculus, and so one of the first games that we tried was Trover Saves the Universe, and we get into like one of the very first levels, and Trover is literally always giving you a hard time. I know Taylor and Shane.
I like to say like we were paying for 11 hours of Trover trolling you.
It's basically it's true. Like one of the very first levels, you're trying to do this like little tiny puzzle, and you do the first couple and they're super simple. You're just pressing a couple buttons. I sat up there, my girlfriend sat up there trying to do the top puzzle for like 20 minutes. And the whole time Trover is just telling you, dummy, come down. We're just going to break the gate. Like just break the gate. Like just come on down. And like, I am sitting on the couch watching this, like on my phone, watching her play this game, and she's getting so frustrated. I am just dying. Like it's almost like I'm in Rick and Morty or Solar Opposites. It's just it's a hilarious thing to watch, especially someone like your loved one play the game and be really frustrated, and you can laugh at it because like you're not purposely doing it to her, but she's still having a hard time, and it's just hilarious to you. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a lot about you any more than anything, John.
yeah. Luckily, she's not here today. Look over my shoulder. Like I don't.
He's like, you play the game. I'll eat my Popeyes. We're gonna have.
Watching you suffer. You suffer for my amusement.
Exactly. So I'm like on Trover's team, just watching her just get frustrated the whole time. But yeah, it's hilarious.
So how do you like? Clearly, creativity is paramount for what you guys do, like just because it is humorous, but it's not just humor, it's the creative juices to create the humor, right? So you're the again, you're the guy who keeps the train running on its tracks and stuff like that. Those two oftentimes don't work well together, right? Staying on time and being creative, which hits you at whenever, any given time, and hey, I got an idea, let's go in a room and brainstorm. That doesn't work for someone who's trying to keep the train on the tracks, right? You're like, hey, no, we don't have time to brainstorm. We got to finish what level 2 or whatever we're doing. So how do you balance the two between allowing creative juices to flow at the same time making sure, hey, look, we got a launch date in 3 months. I get it. I know you want to try something new for this game, but we got to get this thing moving.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's I think a problem that almost every studio has to solve, and every game team has to solve. And for us, for myself and my producers, we're definitely in the minority. When I said we were a creative first studio, I wasn't. A lot of places say that they give lip service to it, but we are a creative first studio. We will throw out work that if a joke doesn't land, we'll retool something if it's not fun, or this we need double jump, or we need a jetpack or whatever here. Like we'll redo an entire feature, and it does blow up our schedules constantly. So what we have to endeavor to do is to make sure that the creatives understand what this does, like what the knock-on effects are. It's like, yeah, cool, we can go brainstorm this again, or we can start, retooling combat yet again. And but this is what it's going to cost you. And on the priority list, if this is below the cut line, would you still want to retool combat, or would you want to take another swipe at this joke? And if they understand the payout, the cost of everything, then it's easier for them to make intelligent decisions. I think a lot of studios, you have creative and project management that just fight each other all the time. They go, here's my line in the sand. If you cross it, then there's consequences. And more at Squanch, it's more about like, here's our end goal. And our end goal isn't just the date. It isn't just launching on these platforms and this, whatever. It's making an awesome game that also launches on this date. So if you're not making an awesome game, you know it. And you can't, a lot of places, they'll just fool themselves into, oh, it's going to get better. It's going to, like, once we get a little bit further, it's going to be better. Once we get this level in, it's going to be better. Once this ability comes in, it's going to be better. It's like, no, it's not. You're not making a great game right now, and you're fooling yourself because you want to make the date.
And that causes attrition. That causes mass attrition. And I think that's when you start seeing mass exoduses, is when you have leadership that is saying, oh, it'll be better next time. Let's just get this game released and it's better next time. And it's like, unfortunately, in the gaming industry, your name is on the game. Like, your credits are there. Like, it is what it is. And it's like, do I want my name on those credits? And am I proud of it? Because I could tell you there's a lot of games out there where they're like, I really wish it just never would have shipped. I wish I could have just said it was
I worked on a game which I will not name at a big studio, giant studio. And they asked me to come on the last 6 months of production. And I came on and started working on it. And I said, I don't want my name on this game. Like, it's going to ship. I'll get it shipped for you, but do not put my name in the credits. And they did.
Who is Bike Ridley? I don't know who this person is. Oh,
Thunder. Yeah. So I mean,
it's like our John Mulkey versus the other John Mulkey. It's like, it's clearly it's not me. I got a doppelganger over at 343. I don't know what you're talking about.
But everybody knows, like if you've made games for a while, even if you play games and you're playing the game that you're making, it's like, okay, this is horrible, or like this doesn't work, or this feels completely wrong, or why aren't we just doing the same thing this other game did here instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and make it shittier? It's like, oh no, this is our back of the box feature. God damn, how many times have I heard that? Like we really need to be unique about it. Like, okay, but it sucks. Like, and you guys just want it to be good, doesn't make it's going to be good. Like, I say it all the time, the customer doesn't care how many overtime hours you put in, or how many times you revved on a system or iterated on this, or how well you did with your staffing schedule, or how well you hit your milestones and to completion percent. I don't care about any of that. They never see any of that. They just know whether or not the game sucks. And
just because you polished a turd and spent hours polishing a turd doesn't mean it's still not a turd.
Like, hey, we hit our ship date on time and under budget. It's like, yeah, but it's horrible. Like great, sucks. You ship something that you can be proud of as a project manager, but you shouldn't be proud of as anything else.
Yeah. So we've taken a lot of your time. So I'm going to get one question from each of us. John, last question for Mike.
Ooh, okay. I could have spent the whole hour asking questions, I guess. So like I was actually listening to a podcast recently that you did, and I heard a story, and instead of asking a question, you mentioned very early in the call about your love for paper or pen and paper games.
Yeah.
There was a hilarious story.
You're not going to make me tell my brother again.
I am, because it was too funny for these guys not to hear, and if they didn't hear it, they have to. Because it's been a story that that as listening to it, I just thought was hilarious. So I want you to tell us.
I just preface it by saying, sorry, Chris. Like they're making me do it again. Like you heard
well,
it.
That's John's memo, right? Like girlfriend, Mike, whatever.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm a dancing monkey. Here comes the story. So like the story was about pen and paper, and I had my roots in pen and paper. That's why I got into gaming, because I'm old. I'm 50 years old, and I had a Commodore 64, so there wasn't a lot of games, and I started the first edition D&D, and we had a bunch of people in our neighborhood that were around our age. My brother was 3 years younger than me, but we were all within the same age range. And I started up a second edition D&D campaign that we played for years. We had like 6 or 8 players with us, but the fun part about it, like other than like the day-to-day stuff that we played for years, was the ending and how it ended. And we were like, okay, we need to retire these characters. They've got to max level. We can't really do much with them again. Let's start over. and start a new campaign. And my brother the whole time had been playing a first edition monk. And if you know anything about D&D, first edition monks are like super overpowered. Like they're OP like crazy. Like especially at high levels, they just fuck shit up. Like they're like there's no counter to a really high level monk if they're played well. And my brother he is a fine person now, and he treats everyone. He treats everyone very well. He's a great dad. Like I cannot go on about how great of a person my brother is, but he was an asshole when he was a little kid, and like I think it had a lot to do with like who bullied him and stuff, and like so like once he got a little bit of power in an imaginary world, he kind of like fucking leveraged it, and he would always bully people around in the group, and he would always pick on different people because there's nothing they could do. And this one kid I actually knew him from church. He was playing a paladin, and he was quiet like for years. Like he would just do the bare minimum. He wasn't a role player. I was surprised every week that he showed up. It's like, dude, why do you keep coming? You don't look like you're having any fun. And he would just like roll his dice and play his paladin. And my brother just relentlessly picked on this dude all the time. So we get to the end of the campaign, everything's wrapping up, and we're getting ready to go our separate ways. And the paladin kid pulls me aside. He's like, here's what I want to do. And he had like this whole punch list of shit that he wanted to do. And it was all to kill my brother. Like he's like, all right, we're retiring these characters. I'm going to take this monk out. So he had multiple different contingencies on how he's going to kill him. And then he shrunk him, and then he polymorphed him into stone in a stupid little kung fu pose. It took him and put him on his mantle back at home. So he like killed my brother, shrunk him into a statue, and put him on his mantle at home. And the crazy thing was like it was out of nowhere. Like this is where my first love, I think, of the unexpected came. Because like up until then, I've been like, okay, I didn't really understand that's what I really liked. But this stuck in my head for 40 years now, where it's like this is like the ultimate experience because like I never would have guessed that this kid would have done that. And he was so like devious about I mean, I had to roll a bunch of stuff. He had like blessed potions and all this stuff prepared for the contingencies, but I probably would have fudged some rolls just to let him win. But it was insanely fun and insanely unexpected, and my brother hates the story because
sorry, Chris.
So next week on our podcast, Next In, we have Mike's brother Chris coming on to tell his side of the story, and I bet he has some fun words about you as a kid. I'm just guessing.
The reason that I wanted to bring that up is because I have been getting more into tabletop games recently, just because I don't know why, but I've just really enjoyed it. We had a really fun game at work that we played the other day. It was called One Night Werewolf. It's very similar to to Mafia. Yep. Super fun, and I've just been really big into like the tabletop social games recently, and so I wanted to kind of share that story. So
John is
tabletop is really blown up. Like tabletop is really blown up. Like board games, pen and paper. Like there's a ton out there to play. There's a lot of good stuff to play virtually now too. Like d20.net has a lot of really great tools if you want to stay in your house and play with people all over the country, which I happen to still do during pandemic time. So there's a lot of cool stuff out there.
That is a good question. So one of the things that I know our team is trying to figure out right now is some of our team is on site here in Nashville. Some of our team is, out in Seattle. And so we've got work from home, a little bit of hybrid. And we're trying to find a game to play that can be done remotely for everyone. Like, I don't know if you guys at Squanch do that, where you're like, hey, we're going to build some culture by doing a game. But like, that's one of my last questions, right? Which is like, what's a remote virtual game that you would suggest? Because I know my team is looking for that right now.
And as the COO, in a short period of time, not like a 6-hour thing, we got to get our work done, but for like an hour or 2
hours.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Among Us. I think like Among Us is
I haven't done that yet.
So much fun.
It allows you to betray and lie to your coworkers in a fun way.
Be perfect.
It sounds like it's
Tuesday. An online werewolf mafia game. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's insanely fun. Like there's other games that we try to do something every month or so where we pull people together we have multiple gaming options that they can play. Among Us is usually one that lasts every time, though, that there's always an Among Us group. and then we do kind of we have a bunch of jokesters at work, believe it or not, like and we do our own version of like Red Letter Media or Mystery Science Theater 3000, where we watch like really shitty movies and just rag on them the whole time together as a group on video chat, which is very therapeutic for, like you watch the original Tremors or something and then just like rag on Kevin Bacon for 2 hours or.
And then you could take content and put it into a Trover lingo, right? Trover needs some new slams, so we got to find some new slams.
It is pretty fun to hear Justin Roiland yelling at something as Morty. And while you're watching a movie, it's really entertaining. So like that's the, we all have the same kind of sense of humor in some ways, and we getting together and offering people time to manifest that is usually the way we go. But movies and I try Among Us. Like that's a really good one.
I think that's what, my kids played it. Obviously, the whole Your Sauce like that. I mean, this has become part of popular culture. Yeah. I do want to, I think that's something we'll have to intertwine maybe for our next kind of game, hour game lunch or whatever we're going to do. My last question. So Squanch is awesome. Squanch is an amazing place. One thing we like to do when bringing someone on, because we totally appreciate that you came on and you spent, almost an hour of your time with us. Tell us a little bit about why, if let's say you're bringing on a new person, you need a gameplay programmer, whatever it is that you're looking to bring on. If you do have major open roles that you're trying to fill, feel free to like kind of advertise them, if you will, here. But what is it about Squanch Games that is really makes it a special place to work and to be a part of, and just, like you mentioned, culture fit? Like, what is it that makes it so cool to be at Squanch?
I think the biggest thing that I hear the most often is just the transparency from upper management to the team. So, our executive team and our directors, we're all pretty much like me. It's like there's no hidden.
All of you grow weed, like is that a part-time gig? Like
some, but like if it's good news or bad news at the studio, it's news that we share with the entire studio. So, a lot of the time people are coming from other places, even other industries, where they don't have that level of transparency, or management says one thing and does another. It's just honesty really that makes people want to stick around longer here. Even if it's honesty that hurts, it's like, hey, yeah, you think you should be making more, but here's why you shouldn't be. And having somebody tell them that, and like, here's the steps that you need to go through to get a promotion or to get a higher pay bump or to be in this bonus range, and you're just not hitting it yet. But we're going to help you get there. That level of transparency and honesty with the team is something that I hear a lot. We just don't have an agenda other than our main pillar, which is make games that we want to play.
I think that's something, as I'm listening, I'm going, if I'm on the phone with someone and I'm representing Squanch, I think one of the coolest things that you have said this whole time that maybe you don't even realize, I rarely, and again, we work with some awesome companies, but I will say for the amount of times you have gone back to this central pillar that you have, that it's like, okay, yeah, we got to be on time. Yeah, we got to make money. Yeah, promotion. Yeah. It's still every single time. It's like your brain works on this circle that always comes back to games got to be super cool. Games got to be super cool. We got to love playing the game, which again, a lot of companies, they have mission statements or they have value statements. And frankly, it's making me go, do I do enough of that here? Yeah. Are we making sure that everyone here knows what is our really the main pillar, not the 28 things we want to do or the, growth metrics or whatever, but like, does everyone here feel the same way? I think that's awesome. Like, I would say like an honest and transparent culture is something that is amazing. And yes, bad news isn't always fun, but at least it's honest news and I can deal with it and work with it, which I always have said I pride myself as a dad that I'm going to tell my kids if they had a bad game or a good game, because that way they know when it's a good game, guess what? They know I'm telling the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
They know I'm not blowing smoke, but at the same time to have a one central pillar that you guys, all the people over at Squanch have the exact same goal And that goal isn't necessarily make money or be on time or whatever. Although those are components that have to be there, it still comes back to make cool games that people love to play, period.
Yep.
End of story.
Yeah, it really helps with decision making at the creative level and the tech level, everything. Like if you're ever in question about which direction you should go, it's like, is this going to be more fun or is it going to be less fun? Is it going to be something that you want to play or we want to play? Is this the game we're making or is it not? And if it's ever like, no, this isn't going to contribute to that central pillar, then we just don't do it. And that clarity of vision, for lack of a better term, it really helps in like all the micro decisions you have to make when making a game of any size. There's all these tiny little micro decisions, and always serving that one master is really helpful.
I think that's all. Anyone who's listening to this, who's in any sort of leadership, because I'm hearing it loud and clear, going, "Whoa!" That again, I've spent 22 years in leadership or whatever it is, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't know that I've ever had a very clear central pillar that always goes back to that. I mean, I have integrity that I try to live by, but a central pillar or central theme like that is pretty cool.
Make recruiting fun again. We just it's like how do we establish the same thing, which is a really cool thing to think about.
Yeah, I love that. Sure. I think that's awesome. Well, hey, you gave us like an hour of your time, Mike. This has been awesome for everyone except for your little brother. This has been fantastic and a ton of fun. Raiders of the Lost Ark is absolutely the beginning of the greatest trilogy of all time. And Squanch Games, it makes amazing games and humorous games, funny games. That's what it's all about. How can people reach out to you or reach out to the company if it is something that they want to support or be a part of, or, hey, I'd love to be a gameplay programmer, I'd love to be on the art team, whatever? How can they get a hold of you and reach out to you so that they can connect?
So they can go to our website, squanchgames.com, and we have a job section that they're recruiting for. Right now, we're about at max team size, but we are recruiting another. We just moved a QA person to design. They had a lot of design shops and have been working on it for the last couple of years. So we're backfilling a senior QA person. We are backfilling another designer as well, and we just filled a VFX artist. So we're pretty locked in for our current product schedule as far as staffing needs, but that's where they pop up. We use Paylocity to.
Yeah, we just lost a VFX artist to you guys. We know exactly who went over there. I'm not going to name the person because I'm a little bitter about it, but it's okay.
Yeah, they're tough, man. Like those are unicorns. Like I tell everybody, if I could redo my career, I'd probably go back and either be a UI artist or a VFX artist. Because like everywhere I went, that's who we're always recruiting for at every studio. Yep. Like, if you're a good VFX artist or UI artist, you could write your own ticket most places.
Yep.
So again, there will be continued roles opening at Squanch, I'm sure, over the years. And like hopefully everyone got from Mike what a killer place it is to be. And I'll keep going back to having a central pillar that every person there always goes back to is such a big deal for someone, whether you're a VFX artist or gameplay person. There's no question as to the micro decisions. Does this make it more fun or not? Period. End of story. Let's do it if it does. Let's not if it doesn't.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So great place to be. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. For John, Shane, and Taylor, we appreciate every minute that you gave to us. This was awesome. For everyone listening, subscribe to this. We'll bring you guys more people like Mike with funny stories, but also some really great insight into the industry. So thank you so much, Mike. Everyone else, have an awesome week.
Next in